I tried to walk away that night, but the divorced woman next door pulled me back. Her voice was low, almost trembling, when she whispered, "One secret night will burn forever." I didn't know if she meant danger or desire. But I knew one thing: whatever happened next, I wouldn't forget it. I tried to walk away, but the divorced woman next door pulled me back, her voice trailing after me, "One secret night will burn forever." That line didn't belong to me yet. Not then. Back then, it was just the way her presence lingered, even when I told myself it shouldn't. The shop was quiet that afternoon, too quiet for a place that usually smelled of oil and clanging tools. I was fixing an old radio someone had dropped off, half listening to the crackle of static, when the bell above the door chimed. She stepped in. Mrs. Hale, though no one called her that anymore. The divorce had stripped the name from her in whispers, but not her confidence. She was in her mid-40s, hair swept back in a careless knot, wearing a cream blouse tucked into dark jeans. Too simple to be trying, too sharp to be ignored. "Do you fix lamps too, or just things that still have a pulse?" she asked, holding up a brass lamp with a crooked shade. I laughed too quickly, words tripping over themselves. Yes. Lamps, radios, toasters, anything that still breathes a little." She tilted her head, eyes narrowing, studying me like she was deciding whether I was joking or just inexperienced. "Good. Because this one doesn't breathe at all." She set the lamp on the counter. Her fingers brushed mine, not on purpose, not long, but long enough. There was a silence after that. Not the casual kind. The kind that hums with something unsaid. I busied myself unscrewing the lamp's base. My hands weren't steady, and I hoped she wouldn't notice. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching. Too composed, like someone who had already lived through enough storms and wasn't afraid of rain anymore. "You're new around here," she said finally. "Couple months. Student?" I shook my head. "Not really. Trying to figure things out." Her smile curved, but not unkind. "Aren't we all?" The lamp was beyond saving, but I fiddled with it anyway, pretending I could solve something. She waited, patient, as if giving me time to find an answer that wasn't about wires or screws. When I finally admitted, "It might need more than a new cord," she leaned closer, her perfume drifting across the small space, faint, like citrus after the peel has been thrown away. "Sometimes things don't need fixing," she said softly. "They just need someone to see them again." I looked up. For a second too long. She didn't look away. A truck rumbled outside, breaking the moment. She straightened, slid a 20 across the counter though I hadn't done a thing. "Keep it," she said, already walking toward the door. I should have let her go. Just another customer, another odd encounter in a quiet shop. But something in her voice lingered, the way she spoke as if the words weren't really about the lamp at all. She glanced back once, the late sunlight catching her face through the glass. A look that wasn't asking, wasn't promising, but waiting. That night, I kept replaying her voice in my head. Like I missed something, or maybe wanted something. The second time I saw her, it wasn't in the shop. It was outside, near the row of mailboxes at the end of the street. She was wrestling with a stubborn lock, her keys jangling in the quiet afternoon. "Want me to try?" I asked, not sure if I was interrupting. She glanced over her shoulder. The sun lit her hair in uneven streaks, making her look younger than I remembered, and older somehow, in the same breath. "It's fine," she said. But the key slipped again, and she exhaled, annoyed. Not at me. At something else. I stepped closer, hand out. "Here. I've got it." For a second she didn't move, then she gave me the key, her fingers brushing mine, cooler this time, hesitant. I bent to the lock, wiggled it until it gave. The door swung open with a soft click. "See? Just stubborn," I said. She let out the smallest laugh. Not light, not free. The kind that carried weight. "That makes two of us." We stood there, awkward, while she sifted through the envelopes. Bills, coupons, something with a lawyer's letterhead. She slid quickly to the bottom of the stack. I pretended not to notice, but I did. I noticed everything. Her hand shook just a little when she tucked the letters under her arm. She had a wedding band tan line still faint on her finger. And when she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, she pressed too hard, as if keeping it in place mattered more than it should. "You always this helpful?" she asked finally, voice softer now. "Only when locks are stubborn." Her lips curved, but the smile didn't stay. She looked tired. Not just the kind a nap could fix, but tired in her bones. We started walking back toward our houses, hers one door down from mine. The silence wasn't heavy, just stretched thin between us. I wanted to fill it, but something about her made me hold back, like she'd notice if I said too much. At her steps, she paused, hugging the stack of mail closer. "You don't have to play the good neighbor. People don't usually stick around long." Her eyes flicked to me, quick, as if gauging my answer. "I'm not most people," I said. Too fast. Too certain. For a heartbeat, she stood there. The guardedness in her face cracked, just a fraction, and I caught it, that flicker of something unspoken, almost like a question. Then she looked away, adjusting the mail against her chest. "Well, thanks for the lock." She climbed her porch steps, but before she went inside she turned back. Our eyes met across the distance. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, but didn't. And that silence felt louder than words. The storm came without warning. One of those sudden summer downpours that darkened the sky and made the air feel thick. I was locking up the shop when I saw her standing outside her porch, clutching her mail to her chest like it might keep her dry. "Power's out," she called across the street, half smiling, half annoyed. The rain slicked her hair against her cheek. "Guess that lamp isn't the only thing broken." I jogged over before I thought better of it. By the time I reached her steps, we were both soaked. She held the door open. "Come in before you drown." Inside was quiet, too quiet. The hum of the fridge was gone, the house dim except for the occasional flash of lightning through the window. I stood in the entryway dripping water, unsure if I should stay. She tossed me a towel. "You'll ruin the floor." I dried my hair, watching her light a candle on the kitchen counter. Her hands were steady now, but her shoulders, they sagged like she'd been holding herself up too long. "You okay?" I asked. "Depends what you mean by okay." She laughed, but it wasn't a laugh. "Power outages have a way of reminding me how quiet this place gets." She poured us both a glass of wine from a bottle that was already half gone. The candlelight caught the edge of her face, softer than daylight, but sharper too, every line, every hesitation visible. We sat at the small kitchen table, the storm outside rattling the windows. Conversation slipped in starts and stops. I asked too many questions. She answered half of them. At one point, she leaned back, staring at the flickering flame. "You know what the worst part is? People think divorce is freedom. But sometimes it's just silence that no one else wants to sit in." Her voice cracked at the end. Just barely. She looked away before I could answer. Something in me wanted to close the space between us. To say something, anything, that didn't sound like pity. But instead I just watched her fingers trace the rim of her glass, round and round, as if she was holding back words she couldn't afford to release. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it, but hers rang on the counter. She glanced at the screen. The name lit up for only a second before she flipped it face down. "Persistent, isn't he?" she muttered, almost to herself. I wanted to ask who. I didn't. The storm cracked again, and the power flickered on just long enough to show how close we were sitting. Too close for neighbors. Not close enough for what I wanted. Her hand rested on the table, palm open. I stared too long. My own hand moved halfway, hesitating in the space between us. She saw. Of course she saw. Her lips parted like she might say yes, or maybe no. But instead she whispered, steady this time, "You should go now." And I did. But only my body left that room, For a few days we didn't speak. No waves from across the yard, no casual comments about the weather. Just silence. But it wasn't empty silence. It was the kind that waits, humming, daring one of us to break it. It broke on a Tuesday evening. She knocked on the shop door after closing, the lamp she'd once left behind now fixed and glowing faintly in her hands. "You didn't have to fix it," she said. "I know." She set it on the counter, but neither of us moved. The air was heavy with what hadn't been said since the storm. Finally, she crossed her arms, her voice sharper than she meant. "What are we doing?" The words landed like a dropped plate. Not loud, but impossible to ignore. I swallowed, searching for an answer. "Neighbors?" I offered weakly. Her laugh was short, bitter. "Neighbors don't sit in the dark drinking wine and—" She stopped herself, biting back the end of the sentence. "And what?" I asked softer. Her eyes lifted to mine, holding, unflinching. "And wait for something that shouldn't happen." We both fell quiet again. The lamp buzzed faintly, a low hum filling the space between us. I tried to change the subject, but my words stumbled. "You look tired." She tilted her head, almost amused. "That's one word for it. You don't have to carry it all alone." "Don't I?" she asked. The sharpness in her tone cracked this time. She leaned against the counter, exhaling slow. Her shoulders slumped. "You're 20-something. You don't even know what it means to carry years you can't get back." I didn't argue. Instead, I just stood there, letting the silence stretch, watching her fingers tap against her arm like she was keeping time with a song only she could hear. Her gaze lingered on me longer than it should have. She looked, not angry, not even sad. Just exposed. Like a person standing too close to a fire, knowing it could burn but not stepping back. I wanted to reach across the counter, erase the space. Instead, I whispered, "So why do you keep coming back?" Her lips parted, no sound. She pressed them together, shook her head slightly, and laughed, not out of humor, but because there was nothing else left. The shop lights flickered once, then steadied. The lamp glowed between us, a fragile witness. I expected her to answer, but she didn't. She didn't say anything. Just looked at me, like she was already mourning something we never even had. It wasn't planned. I was dropping off a package that had been delivered to the wrong address, and she opened the door in an oversized sweater, hair unpinned, eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. "Wrong house again," I said, holding out the box. She took it, then paused. "Wait." Her voice was different, not sharp, not teasing. Just tired, like she'd been holding something back all day. "Can you come in? Just for a minute?" The house was dim, curtains half drawn. She set the box on the table, but her hand lingered on it like it weighed more than it should. I noticed an envelope tucked under the flap, edges worn from being opened too many times. She didn't explain. Not right away. She poured herself a glass of water, sat down, stared at the box like it might open itself. Finally, she pushed it toward me. "He used to send me letters. Real ones." "Who does that anymore?" I hesitated. "Who?" She laughed once, sharp, quick, to hide the crack in her voice. "My ex. Before he was my ex. Before all of it." Her eyes flicked up at me, and then away. "The last one came years ago. I still read it sometimes. Not because I miss him. Just because I forget what it felt like to be wanted." The silence after that wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't empty either. I could hear the tick of the old clock on the wall, the faint hum of the fridge, her uneven breathing. I didn't know what to say. My throat felt dry. All I managed was, "You don't have to keep reading it." Her smile was crooked. "Don't I? It's easier than admitting I've been invisible since." The word invisible lodged itself in me. I wanted to tell her she wasn't. Then I noticed everything, the way her laugh never landed right, the way her fingers tightened around her glass when she wanted to say something but didn't. But I didn't say any of it. Instead, I asked, "Why are you telling me this?" Her eyes met mine, steady, searching. For once, no armor. Because you don't remind me of him. Not at all. But you remind me of something I lost. Before him. Her words hit harder than I expected. My chest tightened, like the room had shifted. She looked at me, waiting for me to laugh, or dismiss it, or change the subject. I didn't. I just sat there, caught in the weight of what she had given me. She took a breath like she hadn't allowed herself to in years. And for the first time, she looked at me without fear. The air between us wasn't heavy anymore, just still, like it had been waiting for this pause all along. No more running around it, no more pretending. We were just two people in a room, with nothing left to shield ourselves from. She sat across from me, her shoulders not as stiff as they used to be. For the first time, she wasn't hiding behind humor or busy hands. She looked tired, yes, but also softer. Like she'd stopped holding her breath. I don't even know how we got here, she whispered, her voice almost afraid of itself. Neither do I admitted. And for once, that didn't feel like failure, it felt honest. There was no lightning strike, no grand gesture. Just the sound of her mug being set gently on the table, and my own pulse keeping time with the silence. I noticed the smallest things, the way a strand of hair had slipped loose near her ear, the faint lines of worry that had finally settled instead of resisting, the fact that she wasn't looking past me anymore. She was looking at me. We didn't need to name it. Maybe we couldn't. She leaned back, folding her arms like she wanted to say, "Don't move closer," but her eyes betrayed her, inviting me in without words. And I stayed where I was, because pushing would have broken it. Sometimes love doesn't need to be claimed. Sometimes it only needs to be allowed. Minutes passed, or maybe hours, I couldn't tell. The world outside could have been collapsing, and we wouldn't have noticed. Finally, I reached forward, not for her hand, not for anything bold, just to set the coaster straight near her mug. My knuckles brushed hers by accident. Or maybe it wasn't an accident. She didn't pull away. Her breath caught, and when she let it out, it was shaky, but free. That sound alone told me everything I needed to know. She didn't have to say she was ready. She didn't have to say she felt what I did. The room itself seemed to ease with us. The lampshade's glow softened, the night beyond the window faded into quiet, and we were left with something rare, an ending that felt like a beginning. She tilted her head, just slightly, like she was testing what it felt like to stop pretending. I wanted to memorize that exact expression forever, the cautious bravery of someone stepping into unknown ground but not alone this time. I didn't reach for her. I didn't need to. She had already let me in the only way that mattered. She didn't say she loved me. But she let her guard down, and that was louder than any "I love you" ever could be. Looking back now, it doesn't feel like a story about falling for someone older. It feels like a story about stumbling into a mirror, one I didn't expect, one that showed me truths I hadn't been brave enough to face. She wasn't just someone who pulled me in with a glance or a laugh. She was someone who carried history in her silences, who wore her strength like a shield and her pain like an echo. Being with her forced me to listen differently, to notice the small things, to see beneath what most people pass over. I think that's what changed in me. Before, I used to measure love by big moments, by confessions, by labels. But with her, love was in the pauses, in the unspoken gestures, in the quiet that didn't feel empty. I learned that intimacy isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just two people sitting in a room, finally not pretending anymore. She taught me resilience without teaching. She reminded me that broken things can still hold beauty, that people can hold grief and still make space for something new. I don't think she ever realized how much she gave me by simply letting me close. What changed in her? Maybe it's not my story to tell, but I think she remembered what it was like to exhale, to trust, to stop bracing for the worst. And maybe that's what love is, two people giving each other the permission to rest. We never needed to put a name on it. We didn't need fireworks. What we had was something steadier, something real. And maybe it won't sound like a love story to everyone. But to me, it was the truest one I've ever lived. Because in the end, I didn't just fall for an older woman. I fell into something rare, something true. And I hope, if you're listening, you find something like that too. Sparkles, if this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?